South Florida's real estate market is sending some of the most confusing signals you'll find anywhere in the country right now. Seriously. On one hand, you're hearing about this seller's strike with stubbornly high prices, but on the other hand, foreclosure rates are actually ticking up. So what is really going on here? Let's try and untangle this whole paradox. And really, this image captures the core conflict perfectly. It's like a tale of two homeowners. On the left, you've got people who are so confident in their property's value that they're just pulling their listings right off the market instead of taking a lower price. But then you look to the right, and it's a completely different reality. You're seeing a rising tide of homeowners in real financial distress, some at risk of losing everything. It's just a stark contrast. So yeah, that brings us right to the big question we're trying to tackle today. How can these two things, record delistings and rising foreclosures, be happening in the same market at the exact same time? It doesn't seem to make sense, right? How can one group of homeowners be holding out for top dollar while another group is literally being pushed out? Let's break it down. All right, first up, let's really dig into the mindset of these sellers, the ones who are just choosing to walk away from the table. And let me be clear, this isn't some small blip on the radar. Nope, this is a massive market-shaping trend. And get this, it's not just a local thing. This summer, South Florida had the highest rate of delisted homes in the entire country. Number one. That's a huge deal. It tells you something really unique is happening right here. Sellers are digging their heels in with more conviction than pretty much anywhere else in America. And here's the why behind it all. This quote from Florida Trend really hits the nail on the head. We're in a classic stalemate. You have sellers who are, mentally anchored to those insane record high prices from the pandemic boom. They saw their neighbors cash out for a fortune and they think, hey, my house is worth that too. But today's buyers, they're a whole different story. They're way more cautious, they're dealing with higher interest rates, and they're just not willing to pay those peak 2021 prices. No way. Okay, so this whole standoff raises a really important question, right? If all these sellers are just taking their homes off the market, does that mean buyers are just left high and dry with no options and zero power? Well, the answer is, surprisingly, no. So what does all this mean for buyers? Well, if you're one of those people who's felt totally sidelined for the past few years, listen up. The ground is actually starting to shift in some pretty unexpected and very positive ways. Okay, just for a second, forget about the sellers who are delisting. Let's look at the homes that are still for sale. Check out this number from Broward County. The number of homes on the market has more than doubled in just 1 year, 123%. That is a massive injection of supply, and it completely changes the game for anyone actively looking to buy. And it's not just about having more houses to look at. It's like a trifecta of advantages for buyers right now. First, mortgage rates just dipped to a 4-month low, which gives you a little breathing room on those monthly payments. Second, that exploding inventory we just talked about, it means way less of that frantic, crazy competition. And third, and this is critical, there are some powerful assistance programs back on the table. Yeah, one of the biggest ones is the state's Hometown Heroes program. Basically, it can give you up to $35,000 as a zero-interest loan to help with your down payment. I mean, for buyers who qualify, this can be an absolute game changer. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The funds are limited, and they're handed out on a first-come, first-served basis. So that creates some real urgency if you think you might qualify. Okay, so we've got these stubborn sellers on one side and these newly empowered buyers on the other. It still feels kind of contradictory, doesn't it? Well, the key to unlocking this whole puzzle, the reason some people can afford to wait while others are facing foreclosure, is realizing there isn't just one South Florida market. There are a bunch of them, and they're all behaving in completely different ways depending on price and location. And you can see that split so clearly right here. Look at the luxury market in places like Boca Raton. It's still described as hot. You're seeing these massive deals like a $17 million condo sale. Now, these are the sellers who can afford to wait. But as you move down the price ladder, the whole story changes. The mid-range is kind of holding steady, but then look at the affordable condo market. Sales are actually surging. This is where you feel the financial pressure, and where homeowners probably don't have the luxury of just pulling their home off the market. And if you want a perfect street-level example of this divide, look no further. In a single neighborhood, Miami Springs, you've got a flood of expensive homes. 40% of all listings are over $1 million. But on the other end, there's a severe shortage of entry-level options. I mean, only one home for sale under $600,000. That's the market fragmentation, right there in black and white. All right, so to recap, we've got a seller standoff, buyers with newfound power, and a market that's basically split right down the middle. So what does this new reality actually mean for you? First things first, let's actually put a name to what's happening. The chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, Lawrence Yun, a pretty big voice in the industry, says that while prices might be rising in other parts of the country, the South, especially Florida, is in what he calls a price correction. And the number one reason? A massive surge in new home construction has finally started to boost supply and, cool things down a bit. So, if the experts are calling this a price correction, how do you play your cards right? Whether you're thinking of buying or selling, we've got your action plan right here. Okay, for all you buyers out there, the message is crystal clear. This is your moment. Take advantage of that huge surge in inventory. It gives you more options and way more negotiation power. Also, get pre-qualified like yesterday. You have to be ready to act fast on those time-sensitive programs like Hometown Heroes. And finally, keep your eyes peeled for price reductions. They're basically a giant flashing sign that a seller is ready to make a deal. And for the sellers, the advice is all about adapting to today's reality, not the market from a few years ago. You just have to accept that the frenzied peak of the pandemic market is over, gone. Pricing your home realistically from the get-go is the single most important thing you can do to avoid just sitting on the market. And you've got to be patient. An average of 80 days on the market in Broward, that's the new normal, so settle in. And all of this leaves us with the ultimate question, the one that's going to define the next chapter for the South Florida market. In this huge standoff, who's going to blink first? Is it the seller holding on tight to yesterday's price, or is it the buyer who's been empowered by today's new reality? The answer to that question is going to shape everything in the months ahead.